Here it is at long last. The review for Lies of P. Pinocchio is all grown up and willing to kill some monsters in Krat City, I believe what it was called. It's a fictional city which draws a lot of inspiration from Victorian age London. And yep, this is the intro. So Lies of P is an action game that was released in 2023. It is a part of the Souls-like genre, and it draws heavy inspiration from other Souls-like games and from the Child's Tale: The Adventures of Pinocchio. But of course, it draws inspiration. It uses characters from that entire I wanted to say franchise. It's really not a franchise. It's a fairy tale. From that fairy tale and twist them to serve another purpose. So let's get on with the game. So gameplay wise, the game is intriguing. It it's very similar to other Souls-like series. You fight enemies. Enemies can one-shot you most of the time, or even one hit can take up almost half of your health bar. Health bar. What the fuck was that pronunciation, man? So, keeping that in mind, um, it is heavily geared towards a older Souls-like gameplay-wise, so it's really challenging. But honestly, of all the Souls-like games I've played, which aren't really that many, it's Lies of P, Wukong, and Elden Ring. I think this is the hardest I've ever seen. Like the whole gameplay, the fights are utterly unforgiving. Every misstep is very punishable, and the fact that you cannot really customize Pinocchio as much as you can in other Souls likes, like give out a very big number of ability points or whatever. This is not present in the game as much. So the skill tree is fairly simple. I mean, it's super simple. It adds a new twist to how you craft your weapons, right? It doesn't have your regular, I don't know, Sword of Cain, Sword of Destruction, the Crescent Moon of uttering shit, and things like that. Every weapon has two parts. It's a handle and a blade, because every weapon you equip in the game is basically a sword, or the variant of the of your weapon. It can be rapiers, it can be long swords, it can be short swords, it can be katanas for all I care. But you get the main gist. And you can combine handles and blades as much as you want, so you can shape things up and change your style on the go, which I think was a nice touch. But at the end of the day, the item selection is just so, uh, how do you say it, so not inclusive. Like it doesn't have a lot of things going on, so it doesn't have a huge array of weapons that you can combine. It's very limited in that regard. The idea is very good, but the execution I think was kind of lackluster, or left me wanting, I think. Another cool thing is that, so Pinocchio, spoiler, Pinocchio is not a real boy, it's a puppet. The goal, the audacity. In my heart, he is a real boy. Please forget and forgive my choice of apparel today. I've decided to go with my vampire pajamas because I like to suck blood, not something else. Right? It was a poor attempt at the joke, but anyways, keeping that up, because it is a puppet, right? It has a mechanical arm, and you can use that and equip different skills in that mechanical arm, so it acts like a secondary skill to whatever you can do with your swords. Which again, I think it was interesting. I didn't find it very useful in boss battles and in battles in general, but it was nice just to have it there. When you die, I mean, it's a checkpoint based game. You have the sort of shrines, which are not really shrines. There are certain points you can just respawn at and spend ability points at. You can, what was I gonna say? Oh, so when you die, you basically don't lose your ergo. I think it was called, the currency was called ergo. You don't lose your ergo. You have to go back in a secondary. So you respawn and you have to go back to where you died, and you have to retrieve that ergo before you're killed. If you're killed, the ergo you can retrieve will be halved. So really is a nice incentive. And if you get killed a lot of times, then you cannot really advance in the game, which is very in tune with Souls-like in general, and very different than the new game Wukong that showed up, which isn't really a full Souls-like game, but there you can just respawn and have the same amount of currency that you had. Right. Let's not draw parallels to Wukong because it's really not fair. You can only draw parallels to other Souls-likes. Now, in regards to the main story, it's a very linear game. You have at all points you know where to go because you just go forward, right? You have the secondary objectives and secondary quests that are, in my opinion, poorly made. They're not really marked anywhere. You have to kind of guess where they would be situated at or what you have to do to complete them because you don't have a map of areas. You just have to remember the areas, which is very in tune with, again, all sorts like games. I don't particularly like that because I'm an idiot and get lost very easily. So yeah, keeping that in mind, it doesn't work for me. I understand the appeal of it, but when you don't have much time to invest in games, like remembering all the spots and all the places you've ever been and all the enemies you're facing and you're faced and the story quest requirements, or rather no side quest requirements, you're gonna get fucking lost. And I think I only completed one of them because it was the easiest one to spot. Other than that, I couldn't find any other side quests. Apparently there were like six, seven, maybe more, but where they were, I have no fucking idea. I actually tried the guide for one of them, but it never triggered for me for some fucking reason, so I have no idea. Story-wise, as stated, it's very linear. You're just going forward, forward, forward. The story itself is pretty simple. You're getting revived, uh, activated by a certain entity that wants your help, and you have to go through the city of Krat. I hope I'm saying that correctly, because otherwise I would sound out like a buffoon. But basically, you go through there, and you fight both humans. So you fight mechanical toys, automatrons that have gained sort of a conscience, but not really. They are independent and they're just on a rampage. They have been afflicted with some kind of curse, apparently. We'll get to that in a sec. You find humans who have been intoxicated with a virus, and you have surviving humans who gather up in gangs to control the city itself, and some other villains, but we'll go to that in a sec. Um, you don't have companions, you don't have anybody. You have like a safe haven that you can go to at all times to just spend more skill points, interact with people, because you met NPCs and they are offering things up for sale. They enhance you in certain areas and ways. You can interact with Geppetto, who is your creator, and he can alter your heart to basically enable some new abilities and perks that you can use in fights. But then again, fights are cruel. They are ruthless. They're brutal. It's super hard. At some point, you even fight four boss enemies at once, almost at once. So it's really, it's been the hardest game I've ever played. It's very, so the story itself, like the missions and all, are very quick, but given its very, very hard nature, it takes a lot of time. At least for me, it took like 3 times how much it should have, just because I was getting killed all of the time. And I didn't upload that shit for YouTube because it was just that brutal and I was getting annoyed. And I didn't. I played it when I started streaming and uploading on YouTube, so probably it's not really that good, or as good as my videos are now. They're not good now, but they are way better than at that point. Parenthesis closed. Now, said about the story. The story itself is so the story itself is very straightforward. It doesn't have very many plots and oh, and another antagonist, now that I remember, is an Order of Alchemists, which again adds a little bit of flavor to the game, but they're like from the get-go presented as your enemies, so really nothing to see that. There's, I think, two plot twists of sort in the game towards the end of the game, but they're fairly noticeable beforehand. Like it's nothing great. It's nothing that, oh shit, I can't believe they did that. It's not like George R. R. Martin killing off main characters. It's more like, oh, I had a hunch. I knew you were this. I knew you betrayed us. That's all I'm gonna say spoiler-wise because it's an interesting twist. There are interesting twists. I think the game has three endings, so two of them are by default, and the third is unlockable through certain events that you have to undertake. And I got the bad ending, I guess, if I remember correctly. No, the good ending from the default one. The third one I couldn't complete because I couldn't complete the side quest. That's a prerequisite for that. Um, Let me think about other stuff about the game. I Regarding bugs, the game is very buggy, or at least my distribution was pretty buggy, and my run was unfortunately pretty buggy-ish. Controls didn't really work properly. The game crashed a lot, but it was more about the controls because if your controls don't work in this game, you're fucked, my friend. The game comes at you during boss battles usually, and again, regular enemies, I got my ass clapped. So the game itself bends you over and fucks you raw. No, no lube, nothing. Fucks you raw. Right there. He doesn't care if you're screaming. He just continues, goes on until it's satisfied with your amount of death. Rant over. This is the game in a nutshell. And you have to have perfect timing most of the time. And if you even one control is misplaced or a misstep on your part, or it doesn't work because the game is clunky. The game is clunky itself. You're gonna get fucked in that fight, and you're gonna lose probably. Then, enough ranting about what was wrong. Let's say something very good about the game. So the best thing I think about the game is the aesthetics. Oh my god, they're beautiful. It's like Victorian England meets steampunk. So you have like, I think I had a sort of dark Bioshock vibe of it, but Bioshock Infinite vibe. Some sense. I mean, I know Bioshock Infinite is in the US and it has a US team, but it just had this feeling about it. I don't know how to describe it, but I think better yet, it is like that. It's like vampire. It's a game where you're this surgeon or doctor that is a vampire as well. That is, I think, the closest game aesthetics wise that I could find. So aesthetic wise, it's beautiful. Everything is so beautifully drawn, and the art is amazing. Everything is amazing about the game. The cutscenes themselves are incredible. The performance-wise, the game runs smoothly. So, performance-wise, they made a terrific job, even in my opinion. Again, I've had problems with some games, but with this one, none. Except bugs, none. It's been running smoothly. It's been an amazing experience and an amazingly aesthetic one as well. And this is the reason I went to the game basically because I hated the combat. I hated how brutal it was. It wasn't even fair. It was just straight up brutal. I think I stayed at one point you fight a huge nut cracking toy enemy in a cave. And I think I've stayed on that fight. I thought it was a side path only because it was that hard, but no, it was the main path. And I stayed on that, I think, 1 hour and a half because of how butt fucked I was by the game. So that nutcracker was actually cracking my nuts, basically. It was grabbing me by my bogus and on my nuts. Right. That's all the talks about my nuts. They're small either way, so it's my dick. What? What? Who talked? Who gave it away? Okay. Continuing on. That was another poor attempt at a joke. Continuing on, there is also an element of decisions you can make throughout the game that impact the surrounding areas and how characters respond to you and how the ending plays out. But it's nothing fantastic. It's not great. I think that's enough of a review, I guess. So let's have some conclusions because we need some conclusions. Now, the developers have been doing mobile games mostly, not or only mobile games, so nothing of this magnitude and sort. And I've got to say, it's an amazing game for that. It's not an amazing game by itself. I don't know how it was nominated for the Game of the Year awards. Probably art style. Yes, art style is the most unique and beautiful game. But as a standalone game, I think it's bad. Or not bad, mediocre, average in every regard. Only the art really is one of the best art style I've seen in the past decade, and that says a lot. And the cutscenes again were just incredibly beautiful. I like how they reinvented the adventures of Pinocchio and how they've drawn from it to actually create an IP. That was amazing. Honestly, and the city of Krat was beautiful as fuck. And the story itself is, whilst predictable, it is decent. It's a good story. I mean, it was predictable but good. It's solid, right? It doesn't uh, anger you or make you think like, oh fuck, this doesn't make any sense what they were doing. No, no, it's actually solid. It makes sense. Every character makes sense. Every I like how every character actually plays a part in the story. It's not just there for the sake of it. Each of them actually play a very important part. And again, love that shit. I don't like the silent protagonist type, but then again, what can I say? It's usually how it is with Souls likes. I don't like it, but it works for some people, and some people love it. But I really loved the City of Krat and the main story I liked. But then again, it's not really, how can I say it? I don't think it's one of the best games that I've ever played. Not even close. It's an average game at best, regarding gameplay and what you can do in the game. Because again, it's a very linear game. You don't have a lot to do in it. The battles are not that epic. It's really forgettable, I think. It's a very forgettable experience, but for the artwork. That being said, I would think it would be a 6 out of 10 game, maybe 6.5, but anything more than that is a lie. And it's only 6 because of the artwork, again, which is fantastic. And the fact that the developer only made mobile games up until this point, I think they did a fantastic job, and they're actually planning to turn this into a franchise because at the end of the game, you have a little end of game cutscene that relates to another child's story that you've probably heard of. Clap your heels 3 times. Bye, guys.